Welcome to This Explainer. We're diving right into a massive topic today. Because right now, one of the world's most powerful nations is standing at a major historic turning point. We're talking about Britain at the brink, a country known for its incredibly deep history, massive economic footprint, and huge global influence is basically facing a perfect storm of converging forces. And experts are saying this is going to completely reshape its future. So it really begs the question, is Britain entering its most uncertain era in decades? Well, analysts aren't just looking at random, isolated incidents here. They're actually pointing directly to the year 2026 as the critical crucible in modern British history. We're seeing an unprecedented overlap of intense economic pressures, insanely rapid technological disruption, and deep political shifts. The decisions being made right now, in the lead up to 2026, are absolutely going to ripple out for generations.
To wrap our heads around these massive challenges, here is our roadmap. First, we'll look at the 2026 turning point. Second, domestic pressures and divisions. Third, technology and global competition. And finally, securing Britain's future. Let's jump right into Section 1, the 2026 turning point, specifically navigating the cost of living. To truly grasp the macroeconomic data we constantly see in the news, we have to look at daily realities. Sure, overall inflation might have cooled off a bit compared to the last few years, but the squeeze on everyday households is still very real. People are feeling it through consistently high utility bills, steep transportation expenses, and increasing food prices. But maybe most strikingly, young adults are finding themselves completely shut out of the property market. Buying a home in a major city, for a lot of people, that's just simply out of reach right now. And at the exact same time, rental costs just keep rising, which is creating some really serious long-term stability concerns.
And this brings us right to 2016. This is the anchor year where economists warn these compounding pressures are going to peak. Basically, kicking the can down the road is no longer a viable option. This is a moment that demands immediate structural policy shifts and some very serious long-term planning. The ultimate test here is whether Britain can actually create genuine opportunities for future generations, while somehow maintaining broad economic stability. It's a tall order.
Moving on to Section 2, domestic pressures and divisions, focusing on a highly polarized political landscape.
It's no surprise that economic friction naturally spills right over into the political sphere. Across the country, you have these really intense debates over immigration, how public services are funded, taxation, and Britain's exact role on the global stage. And it has increasingly polarized the nation. But here's the thing. This polarization isn't just one unified national bloc. It's more like a complex geographical puzzle. Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and England are all bringing entirely unique and honestly often competing priorities to the table. Each region has its own distinct political challenges and immediate needs, which makes national decision-making incredibly complicated. Policymakers are essentially tasked with finding common ground in a highly divided environment. Yet, interestingly enough, as a direct result of all this friction, citizens across all those regions are pretty united in one big demand. They want greater transparency, accountability, and effective leadership from their institutions. Okay, let's speed things up for Section 3, technology and global competition, looking at the rapid global shift. We have to talk about the AI revolution. It is fundamentally reshaping exactly what's possible across countless industries. And look, this isn't science fiction anymore, it's the reality shaping 2026. The UK has massive ambitions here. They want to position themselves as a premier global leader in this tech revolution. But the tightrope they are walking is incredibly thin. Governments have to foster this world-leading innovation, but they have to do it without triggering massive workforce displacement. Which forces a really critical, everyday question. What actually happens to the jobs that become automated? With millions of roles fundamentally transforming globally over the next decade, governments have to figure out how to effectively regulate artificial intelligence without stifling growth. And on the flip side, practically speaking, everyday workers have to figure out how to adapt to industries that are changing, essentially overnight. Now, zoom out for a second, because the UK isn't operating in a vacuum. Navigating a highly competitive globe means dealing with major world powers pouring vast amounts of capital into tech and defense. It means managing highly vulnerable global supply chains, where economic uncertainty in one corner of the globe instantly causes ripple effects everywhere else. All the while, businesses are aggressively seeking out emerging market opportunities. The core takeaway here? Britain's future prosperity depends entirely on its ability to remain globally connected and highly adaptable. which leads us to our final section, Part 4, Securing Britain's Future Through Climate and Cyber Resilience.
Today, modern national security really rests on two vital pillars. The first is physical resilience. This means balancing the massive logistical transition to clean energy and preparing for extreme weather, all while keeping economic growth strong. The second pillar is digital resilience. Protecting critical infrastructure, communication networks, and financial systems from cyber threats is now just as urgent, literally just as critical, as protecting physical borders with a military. In fact, the source material bluntly notes that security threats are evolving and risks are no longer limited to physical borders. That perfectly encapsulates the modern era, doesn't it? Rapid technological advancement creates incredible tools for society, for sure, but it also creates entirely new, invisible vulnerabilities. Because of how interconnected our systems are, cybersecurity is going to be one of the absolute most critical areas of investment in the coming years for both governments and everyday businesses alike.
Now, despite all these monumental hurdles, the cost of living, political divisions, AI disruption, cyber threats, there is actually a really strong case for optimism here. The UK possesses world-class universities, incredibly innovative companies, strong institutions, and talented, resilient people. Throughout its long history, Britain has faced numerous periods of massive uncertainty and transformation, and every single time, their ability to adapt and innovate has been the key to turning those massive obstacles into genuine opportunities. The decisions being made by leaders, businesses, and everyday citizens right now are actively writing the history of 2026. Those choices are going to determine the country's direction for decades to come. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing the UK today? Think about the UK's capability to navigate this historic crossroads, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring these interconnected topics. Thanks so much for learning with us today.